So, um, I want you to picture a scene that I guarantee you have lived through. It is 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. You've been in back-to-back meetings, your inbox is just exploding, and your brain is starting to feel like wet wool.
Oh, yeah, we have all been there.
Right. So you decide, okay, I need a reset. You walk into the office kitchenette, you boil the kettle, pour the hot water over the coffee grounds, the aroma hits you, and then you reach for the cutlery drawer.
And let me guess, it is just an absolute desolate wasteland.
Completely barren. I mean, maybe there is a lonely fork in there, or a plastic knife from a takeout order 3 years ago, or worst case scenario, a teaspoon that still has someone else's dried yogurt stuck to it.
Ugh.
But a clean teaspoon, gone. Just vanished into the ether.
It really is the universal workplace grievance. I mean, it sounds so petty when you say it out loud, I can't find a spoon, but in that specific moment, it is genuinely rage-inducing.
It is.
It feels like the universe is actively conspiring against your caffeine intake.
It really does. And usually the cycle goes like this. We grumble, we blame the night cleaners, or we blame the interns, or we blame Dave from accounting.
Right.
And we improvise with a pen or a chopstick and just move on.
Right, you just stir with whatever is closest.
Exactly. But today, we are doing a deep dive into what happens when you stop grumbling and actually start measuring. Because it turns out this isn't just an annoyance. It is a phenomenon that has been rigorously studied by epidemiologists.
Yeah, and that is the wild part. We aren't looking at a blog post or an angry Reddit thread today. We are looking at a legitimate, peer-reviewed scientific paper published in the BMJ, the British Medical Journal.
Which is pretty prestigious, and the title of the paper is just absolute gold. It was called The Case of the Disappearing Teaspoons, Longitudinal Cohort Study of the Displacement of Teaspoons in an Australian Research Institute.
It sounds like a complete joke, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
But the methodology is incredibly sound. The authors, led by Megan Lim at the Macfarlane Burnet Institute in Melbourne, applied the exact same rigorous scientific methods they would use to track a disease outbreak, like influenza or a new virus, but they applied it to stainless steel cutlery.
Which is exactly why we are here. Our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack this study. We're going to find out exactly how fast teaspoons disappear, where they actually go, and what this seemingly silly study reveals about human nature, office culture, and even deep economic theory.
It is a fascinating look at the tragedy of the commons, but played out in the break room with silverware.
So let's get into the setup. Where did this even come from?
Yeah.
Because epidemiologists are busy people saving lives. Surely they had better things to do than ground spoons. Was there a specific incident that sparked this?
Well, it was born out of pure frustration, which, is often the mother of great science. It was January 2004. The researchers at the Burnet Institute went to their tier room and found it, in their exact words, bereft of teaspoons.
A tragedy in itself, really.
Indeed. So they did what literally any office manager would do. They sent someone out to buy a new batch. They restocked the drawer. But within a few months, those were gone too. They couldn't stir their sugar. They couldn't measure their instant coffee. And being researchers, they realized they couldn't find any data on this in the scientific literature. No one had actually studied the rate of spoon loss.
I just love that their response to "we have no spoons" wasn't just to buy more, but to say, let's design a longitudinal cohort study. It speaks to a very specific kind of nerdiness that I deeply appreciate.
Oh, absolutely.
But before we get to the results, we need to talk about the setup. How do you actually track the migration of spoons without looking like a completely crazy person? I mean, you can't exactly interview them.
No, you can't. You treat them exactly like the subjects of a medical trial. So they established a spoon cohort. They purchased 70 stainless steel teaspoons. But here's the problem. If you just buy spoons and throw them in the drawer, you don't know which ones are new and which are old. You need to be able to identify your specific subjects.
Right, you need a control group, or at least a way to track specific individuals in the population.
Exactly. So they discreetly numbered each one with red nail polish on the underside of the handle.
Red nail polish, that seems simple, but also maybe susceptible to tampering or washing off in the dishwasher.
They thought of that, actually. They monitored the marks and reapplied the nail polish as needed during their weekly census. But here is where the study design gets really clever. They didn't just dump them on one place, they stratified the sample.
Right.
So they had 54 standard teaspoons, just your basic cheap office cutlery, but they also bought 16 higher quality teaspoons.
The luxury cohort. I assume this was to see if the spoon thieves had expensive taste.
Precisely. They wanted to see if value affected the theft rate. Because if the nice spoons disappear faster, it implies a motive driven by value or greed. If they disappear at the same rate, it tells you something else entirely. So they distributed these 70 spoons across 8 different tier rooms in the Institute, which employs about 140 people.
And the layout of the office really matters here, doesn't it? Because not all tea rooms are created equal. In any office, you have the public spots and the private spots.
It is crucial to the findings. They divided the tier rooms into 2 distinct categories. First, you had 4 program-linked rooms. These are tier rooms used by specific departments or teams, places where you basically know everyone who walks in. It is a private space. You know that if you take a spoon, you are literally taking it from your colleague, Sarah.
Okay, so that is the we're all in this together space. There is some accountability there.
Right. And then you had 4 communal rooms. These were attached to corridors, meeting rooms, or large staff rooms. High traffic, lots of strangers passing through, people from other departments.
The stage is totally set. 70 numbered spoons, red nail polish, hiding in plain sight. How did they actually track the data? Did they have hidden cameras or something?
No cameras. They performed a weekly census, literally a head count for spoons. For 5 months, the researchers would scan every desktop, every visible surface, and every drawer looking for these errant spoons.
I just picture a researcher with a clipboard peering onto people's desks while they're trying to work, looking for a flash of red nail polish under a pile of papers.
It shows real dedication to the cause, I'll say that. And the results they found were, honestly, they were shocking.
Okay, lay it on me. What was the survival rate of the spoon cohort?
It was an absolute massacre. After just 5 months, 56 of the 70 teaspoons had disappeared. That is an 80% loss rate.
80%. In 5 months.
Yes.
That seems incredibly high. If that was a workforce attrition rate, the company would be closed by the end of the year. That basically means the spoon population is being decimated.
It gets even more interesting when you calculate the half-life. Now, usually in epidemiology or physics, half-life is how long it takes for a substance like a radioactive isotope to reduce to half its initial value.
Right, so how long until 50% of the sample is gone?
Precisely. They calculated the half-life of a teaspoon at the Institute was 81 days. So if you buy a batch of spoons today, in less than 3 months, half of them will be completely gone.
Wow. But didn't the location matter? You mentioned they had those communal rooms and the private team rooms. My gut feeling says people behave better when they were being watched by their peers.
Your gut is right, and the data supports it rigorously. This is where we start seeing human behavior really quantified. In the communal rooms, those public spaces, the half-life was only 42 days.
42 days, so barely 6 weeks before half the stock is gone. That is incredibly fast.
Exactly. But in the program-link rooms, where there is a sense of ownership and community, the half-life was 77 days.
So it still disappeared, but just remarkably slower.
Nearly twice as slow. It is a clear indicator that when a resource is viewed as public with no specific ownership, it vanishes much faster. The social contract is significantly weaker.
What about the fancy spoons, though? Did the spoon connoisseurs target the high-quality silver? I imagine someone thinking, hey, this is nice. This would look good in my kitchen at home.
Surprisingly, no. The researchers found that the rate of loss for the high-quality spoons was not significantly different from the standard ones.
So a spoon is a spoon is a spoon.
To a spoon shifter, yes. They don't discriminate based on quality. They just have a functional need to stir their drink, and they take the tool available. It strongly suggests the theft isn't driven by greed for value, but by convenience or perhaps absent-mindedness. They aren't stealing for profit. They are stealing for utility.
I definitely want to get into the why in a moment because the study authors propose some incredible theories for that. But before that, I really enjoyed the part of the paper where they extrapolate this data. Because 80% loss in one building is bad, but when you scale that up to the rest of the world, the numbers get genuinely insane.
Oh, this is where they had some fun with the math. They calculated the rate of loss as approximately 360 spoons per 100 teaspoon years.
Teaspoon years. I just love that that is a unit of measurement now.
Right. And if you apply that rate to the entire workforce of Melbourne, which is about 2.5 million people, they estimated that 18 million teaspoons go missing in the city every single year.
18 million. That is a staggering amount of metal. It feels almost impossible. Where's it all going?
They visualized it for us. If you laid those 18 million lost spoons end to end, they would cover 2,700 kilometers.
Okay, give me a reference point for that distance.
That is the length of the entire coastline of Mozambique.
A literal coastline of lost spoons. That is a fantastic mental image.
And if you weighed them, it would be over 360 metric tons. That is the equivalent of 4 adult blue whales.
Just floating around in the ether. It really highlights the absurdity of it. We are hemorrhaging cutlery on an industrial scale.
And there is real cost to it, too. At the Institute alone, maintaining a functional spoon population, which they defined as 1 spoon for every 2 people, costs them about $100 Australian per year.
Now, to be fair, $100 isn't breaking the bank. Is it really worth a study? I can hear some listeners out there thinking just buy more spoons.
The purchase cost isn't high. You are totally right. But think about the efficiency cost. The study touches on this, actually. The time spent searching. If an employee earning a decent wage spends just 2 minutes a day hunting for a spoon or washing a dirty one they found in the sink because the drawer is empty, multiply that by 140 people every single day, that productivity loss dwarfs the cost of the metal.
That is a really great point. It is the friction in the system. It breaks your flow. You go for coffee, you get annoyed, you spend 5 minutes complaining to Dave. It all adds up. So this brings us to the big question, the $1 million, or I guess the $100 question. Where do they go? The study authors didn't just leave it at they're gone. They actually proposed theories.
They did, and they range from standard economic theory to outright science fiction. The first and perhaps most scientifically robust theory is Garrett Hardin's tragedy of the commons.
I remember this from Economics 101, but refresh our memory on how it applies to office cutlery.
Sure. The classic example is a pasture open to all herdsmen. Each herdsman wants to maximize his gains, so he adds more cattle to graze on the free land. But if everyone does that, the grass is completely depleted and their resource is destroyed for everyone.
So in this case, the commons is the communal silverware drawer.
Exactly. The utility, to me, the individual, of taking a spoon back to my desk to stir my coffee is high. I get my coffee stirred. I might even leave it on my desk because I'm lazy or toss it in the bin by accident. The negative impact, 1 fewer spoon in the drawer, is spread across the whole office. I barely even feel it.
The internal thought is always, it's just 1 spoon, there are plenty more.
Precisely. That is the internal monologue. But when everyone operates in their own self-interest, the resource is completely depleted. The fact that the communal rooms lost spoons so much faster than the private rooms is almost perfect evidence of this theory in action. In the private rooms, the commons is smaller and it is socially regulated. In the public rooms, it is a total free-for-all.
It makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
In the private rooms, social pressure acts as a regulator. You know, if you take the last spoon, your desk mate is going to be mad at you. In the communal kitchen, you are anonymous. But the authors didn't stop at economics, did they? They went a bit weirder.
They really did. They considered the theory of resistentialism.
This is a new one for me. It sounds like a French art movement or something. What is resistentialism?
It is a concept that is a bit more philosophical, bordering on satirical, really. The motto is, les choses sont contre nous, things are against us.
Oh, I feel that way about my printer every single day.
Right. It is the idea that inanimate objects have a natural antipathy toward humans. We don't control the spoons, they control us. The theory suggests the spoons are migrating on their own, perhaps to hide, or simply to frustrate us.
So it isn't theft, it is an escape. The spoons are fleeing the coop.
The authors note that while it seems unreasonable to say spoons have agency, the fact that humans seem totally powerless to stop them from disappearing makes you wonder who is really in charge. It captures that feeling of helplessness when you lose your keys or the TV remote.
And then, of course, they had to reference the great Douglas Adams.
You really can't talk about missing items without bringing up The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The authors propose that there might be a planet somewhere in the cosmos entirely given over to spoon life forms.
A spoon nirvana.
Yes, where unintended spoons slip away through wormholes in space to enjoy a uniquely spoonoid lifestyle.
I honestly think that is as plausible as the other theories sometimes. It certainly feels that way when you look at an empty drawer. But unlike Douglas Adams, these researchers actually had a chance to confront the potential thieves. What happened when the 5 months were up?
This is the aftermath phase. After 5 months, they revealed the study to the staff. They told everyone, look, we have been watching the spoons. We know they're gone. Please check your drawers, check your bags, and bring them back.
The moment of truth.
Yeah.
How many actually came back?
5.
5 out of 56 missing spoons.
Only 5. And interestingly, 4 of those were found in areas far removed from where they started. They had migrated across the building. One had been missing for 20 weeks before it finally resurfaced.
That is abysmal recovery. So even when confronted, people didn't return them. Or did they just not have them?
Well, this is where it gets psychologically interesting. No one, not a single person admitted to permanently removing a spoon.
I didn't take it. It must have been the spoonoid planet.
Exactly right. So the researchers sent out an anonymous follow-up questionnaire to try and get to the real truth. They got 94 responses, and the results reveal a fascinating paradox about human nature.
Let's unpack that survey. What did they find?
First off, 73% of the employees said they were dissatisfied with the lack of spoons.
Okay, so the grievance is very real. People are unhappy about the spoon shortage.
But in that exact same anonymous survey, 36 employees, that is 38% of the respondents, admitted to stealing a teaspoon at some point in their lives.
Mostly from work, I assume.
Yes, mostly from work. So you have a situation where people are complaining about the problem, but a significant chunk of them are the problem.
It is the absolute hypocrisy of the break room. Who
Yeah.
took all the spoons, asks the person with 3 dirty spoons hoarding them in their desk drawer.
Exactly. It highlights a real disconnect between our values, stealing is wrong, and our actions, I need to stir this coffee right now.
Yeah.
The immediate need overrides the moral imperative, especially when the item is of such low value. We just don't register it as theft.
But did anyone admit to stealing them in the past year during the actual study window? Because admitting to stealing one at some point in your life is pretty broad.
Yes, 18 people admitted to stealing a teaspoon in the past year. But again, the math doesn't quite add up. 18 people admitting to taking one spoon doesn't explain 56 missing spoons?
Unless they're taking multiple
Or, and this is the most likely scenario, people simply don't realize they are doing it. They pick it up, they walk away, it gets thrown in the trash with a yogurt cup, or it ends up in a bag and goes home never to return.
that accidental loss factor has to be huge. I mean, how many times have you thrown away a plastic takeaway container and panicked for a second thinking you tossed a real fork?
Oh, it happens all the time. There is also the biroid phenomenon mentioned in the acknowledgments. Technically, that regards ballpoint pens, but it is where things just seem to migrate into a dimension of lost things. It speaks to a lack of mindfulness. We interact with these objects so automatically that we don't register them as property. We see them as disposable, even when they're forged from solid steel.
So we are coming to the end of our deep dive. We have the data. Spoons disappear at a rate of 80% every 5 months. We have the theory. It is a tragedy of the commons fueled by convenience and absent-mindedness. But beyond the humor, what are the actual implications here? Why does this really matter?
Yeah. It matters because it is a perfect microcosm of efficiency and organizational culture. We talked about search time earlier, but there is also the element of desperation. When the system fails, people get desperate.
The study mentioned people using other objects, right?
Yes, the instrumental substitution. People reported using knives and forks, which is fine, but also using staplers to measure out coffee.
Staplers. That is desperate. And surely not sanitary at all. I cannot imagine dipping a swing-line stapler into a jar of Nescafe.
It shows that when a system fails, even a small system like cutlery distribution, employees have to improvise, and that improvisation is usually inefficient and sometimes gross. It creates a low-level degradation of the entire work environment.
So what is the solution? Based on this rigorous study, how do we save the spoons? Or is it just a lost cause?
The authors actually have some clear recommendations. First, on the economic side, buying expensive spoons is a complete waste of money. They disappear just as fast. Go for the cheap, functional bulk buys. Don't try to impress anyone with the cutlery.
Quantity over quality. Just flood the market.
Second is design. The study suggests avoiding communal tea rooms in favor of private, team-based kitchenettes. If you can link the resource to a specific group of people, they will take far better care of it.
Accountability beats anonymity every time.
And finally, they suggest that perhaps we just need to accept that spoon loss is an inevitable part of the cost of doing business. Like electricity or rent or toilet paper, spoons are a consumable, not a permanent asset.
That is actually a very liberating way to think about it. Just budget for the black hole.
Exactly. Stop fighting the spoonoid planet. Just buy the spoons.
Well, before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We have laughed a lot about spoons today, but take a look around your own life. This study showed that 80% of resources vanish in a communal setting without enforcement.
It is a sobering statistic when you apply it elsewhere.
It really is.
Yeah.
So are we naturally incapable of maintaining shared public goods? If we can't even manage teaspoons without destroying the commons in 5 months? What does that say about how we treat our parks, our public spaces, or even our environment?
It definitely suggests that without ownership or strict rules, our default setting is consumption. We take what we need now and worry about the empty drawer later.
Or maybe the spoons really are just winning the war against us.
I am certainly not ruling out the planet of the spoons.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Go check your desk drawers. You might be harboring a fugitive.
See you next time.